A child is born in May 1872, grows into an apathetic orphan who thinks that the life is too boring to be endured. As he treads through adolescence, he develops self-obsession, sense of sin, and neurosis due to the exercise of acute introspection. Before entering the third decade of his life, he has already made several attempts at ending it. At the age of 18, he finds his belief in religion shattered when he discovers that the first cause argument can be refuted. Till 20, he's just a normal, self-obsessed, pathetic, depressed guy who doesn't have any serious interest, who can easily waste his life in the pursuit of some cosmological cure to the meaninglessness of existence or otherwise commit suicide. But something changes here. He lives on as an atheist who co-founds analytical philosophy, becomes one of the best logicians of his day, writes some of the best essays on classical logic, pens some of the greatest treatises on philosophy, produces some of the most profound commentaries on political theories. He continues. His 1905 article on denoting comes to be known as the paradigm of philosophy, is proclaimed as the champion of humanitarian ideals. In short, he is a hell of a polymath who succeeds in exerting his influence upon every stretch of human experience, and is thus awarded a Nobel Prize for his varied and significant writings. Someone so meticulously predisposed to leading a worthless, depressed life doesn't just make paramount contributions to our understanding of the world, but also leads such a graceful and happy life that when he is asked to reflect on it, replies by saying, "This has been my life. I have found it worth living and would gladly live it again if the chance were given me." So what did change in Bertrand Russell's life when he traversed the third decade of his life? Fortunately, he does explain the philosophy that harnessed his life. His magnum opus, The Conquest of Happiness, is the center of our inquiry, and we shall see if his views on happiness are credible in the light of modern research. And can we follow his advice? Roughly, his philosophy is any kind of interest or morbid obsession that directs and then limits one's impulses to themselves is destructive to happiness. Conversely, any form of interest that directs one's impulses to an external object is conducive to happiness. Granted that the person never fully acquires the object of his interest, in addition, the person shows an unwavering sense of love towards everything and everyone he or she encounters. Russell's advice is divisible in 6 parts. If we think of it as a process that generates happiness, then the fuel is provided by the part played by Zest. Zest is the central part of this process. Zest induces the person to get engaged with an object that must lie outside of that person. 2 parts in this process are played by 2 preconditions. Person should be willing to pursue love and abandon hatred at any rate. Person should not direct their impulses towards themselves. If the process is carried out artfully, the person at the end will not be able to fully acquire the object of their interest. The last part is played by this partial deprivation. To be without some of the things you want is an indispensable part of happiness. Let's see if this model works. Part 1. Zest. Russell uses this word to refer to a kind of openness to the world that makes a person love and then get interested in the things he encounters. Zest is what makes a person treat the object of his interest as an end. Call it curiosity or intrinsic motivation. At this point, I wish to explore a non-relative and general form of interest, which Russell calls general zest. It doesn't require any specific way of engagement or object of interest. Research shows that the process of discovery is intrinsically enjoyable, and intentionally treating some random uncertainty as an object of interest produces positive emotions. Let your interests be as wide as possible, and let your reactions to the things and the person that interests you be as far as possible friendly rather than hostile. But getting interested in everything surely has its own drawbacks. A generalized, non-relative and non-specific form of interest surely is productive of happiness, but it can't offer a sustained sense of contentment. Sustained sense of contentment is the product of six-part process in which part 1 should be played by specialized zest. Russell prefers general zest to specialized zest. He argues that the person who pursues specialized zest, say she is pursuing biology, soon gets to know everything that there is to know about it and thus gets bored. This could have been the case at Russell's time. One cannot possibly know everything that there is to know about biology or any object of specialized zest. Moreover, general zest does not offer any room for the person to feel competent. Competence is one of the key ingredients of the recipe of happiness, as studies suggest.
It's not how much money you are making, it's how much more money you are making than other people. Relative dollars are the better predictor of happiness.
Specialized zest demands an object and necessitates some sort of engagement. One is intrinsically motivated to pursue something. Object of interest. What should be the object of one's interest? Russell suggests that it should be something that completely seizes one's attention, leaving no room for stray introspection. It should be something constructive that requires skill and is capable of indefinite improvement. Something that the person can find intrinsically satisfying without demanding universal applause. In chapter 10, Russell says that the scientists of the day are more content on average than the artists because scientists enjoy an indefinite influx of feedback from the community, unambiguous feedback, something that offers a consistent purpose. The engagement with the object of interest is so that it creates a feeling of oneness with the world. Csikszentmihalyi's theory of flow is backed by decades of research. The resemblance between Russell's advice and theory of flow shows that he really was up to something when he wrote this book. So if you are engaged with the object of your interest in such a way that it meets the conditions of the flow, there is ample evidence to suggest that you will be happy. What if you have got no zest in the first place? You have no energy to pursue anything. You are such an inveterate nihilist that you consider nothing meaningful. It doesn't imply that you don't have any impulses. It suggests that your impulses are directed inwards. You don't have energy to hang out with your friends, but you won't get tired dwelling on some preposterous nihilistic philosophy for days at a stretch. The first part of this process is tightly interwoven with the fourth, namely the first precondition, that your impulses shall not at any rate be directed inwards. But what if they are already directed inwards and you are already absorbed in introspection in a state of meaninglessness, or what Viktor Frankle calls existential vacuum? In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankle, while suggesting cure to the feeling of existential vacuum, says that there may not be some universal meaning, but pursuing something as responsibility can create meaning in that very pursuit. By simply abandoning the quest for some cosmological meaning and doing things can generate zest. Feelings follow behavior. It can happen that you hate doing something, but you somehow force yourself into doing it, and along the way your interest in it keeps building. Just start pursuing something that lies outside of you, and things will become better. I wish to stress that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world rather than within man or his own psyche, as though it were a closed system. The more one forgets himself to a cause to serve or a person to love, the more human he is. It should be our endeavor, therefore, both in education and in attempts to adjust ourselves to the world, to aim at avoiding self-centered passions and at acquiring those affections and those interests which will prevent our thoughts from dwelling perpetually upon ourselves. It is not the nature of most men to be happy in a prison, and the passion which shut us up in ourselves constitute one of the worst kinds of prisons. Bertrand Russell.